anymore, and I can't do that anymore, and I'm going to have to change this to get to this point that I was trying to get to. And it's a real charge for me as a writer to have to work through that. So that's kind of fun. But some of the bigger deaths are something that, I'm telling stories with those characters to try and build them to a certain point so that it'll have the emotional punch when they die. And, there have been characters that I've introduced into Walking Dead specifically, where I've known exactly when they're going to die, while I'm writing their first appearance, and every step of their story is getting to that point, so that I can upset you guys.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of shocking deaths for me when I've read it. I was always so utterly eyed-open at all of them. But the comic book's always been amazing to me. It's still something I like I said, I just got back reading again because I wanted to read through page after page. Writing has always been unique, but it's been a blast, reading this comic. I'm looking forward to seeing issue 200 when that comes around. Yeah, thank you very much, Robert Kirkman. Also, I love Negan, by the way. He's one of the best characters I've read in that comic book, at least just in general. And thanks also for continuing on with Walking Dead, the final season since Telltale had to shut down from it. So thank you very much for that. And also,
that reminds me, I was supposed to approve the trailer for episode 4 today, and I forgot. But yeah, episode 4 of the final season of the Telltale game will be out very soon. Yeah. But what is that? Is that a bootleg shirt? Or
No, this is a real. I'll show you. Someone actually made this
bootleg shirt to me. Like that's
no, someone made this. Is made. It says "Walking Fred" right there. It's a just representing right there. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Robert. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Awesome.
Pleasure to meet you.
Cool, man. Great meeting you. Yeah.
Hey, Robert. I'm Jonathan. Nice to meet you. Digitally.
Hey, Jonathan, before you ask a question,
yes.
How unpleasant is my giant face on this big screen I can't see? Should I come back here?
So pleasant.
Is this just too much for people?
It's a little intense like that. Maybe.
There, right there.
There you go. Perfect. Beautiful. So, I wanted to let you know that I really liked last year's Walking Dead Day, and the community here really embraced it. All the comic book stores took part of it. It was a lot of fun with the blind bags and the variant covers. I was wondering if you had any plans for the next event and anything you might be able to share about it.
I know that we had talked about possibly making that an annual event, but I feel like some of the retailers would prefer that to be special and happen less often, but to be completely honest, I have no idea where that decision landed. So there may be another Walking Dead Day in October. If it were to happen, I imagine it would involve less stuff. Like, I don't think we would be doing the 15 blind bag comics and all the different reprints and things that we did. We might do a smaller Walking Dead Day. But I know that, a lot of people were very happy with how that went. So I'm open to doing it again, but I think it's something we're still looking into. We'll probably have a more definitive plan for that closer to the beginning of summer. It would definitely be in October again.
Thank you so much.
Great. Good talking to you. Thanks for the advice on making my head smaller.
Yes, I can do.
This is the weirdest porn site I've ever been on. Hi, my name's Sebastian. That's much better than the giant head. First off, thank you for using my name as Invincible's middle name. That was, I get that every time we do geek trivia here. I'm always the only one who seems to remember that.
That's awesome.
I didn't actually have a question per se, as I just wanted to say, of all the things you've written, which I'm a fan of at least 90% of them, the League of Losers, back when you did Marvel Team Up. The C, D, and E list characters have always been my favorite, and I just wanted to thank you for writing that, because that was literally a love letter to me, even though you didn't know it at the time.
Well, it's funny about that story. They can't remember exactly, so I think they tried to cancel Marvel Team Up around issue 12 or so. And so I was like, well, I'm wrapping this book up. And but they ended up giving me a 13th issue, and so I did that big Titanus art. And then they're like, okay, so your 13th issue is your last issue. So I'm playing for that. And then at some point, Tom Brevoort came to me and was like, hey, I guess Marvel Team Up's doing way better than we thought, so we're going to keep going. And I had no ideas because many months had gone by, and I was like, okay, I'm wrapping up at 13. And usually on a series, I'm always kind of plotting and planning for where to go and stuff. And so when he called me on the phone, he was like, yeah, you can keep going if you wanted to, right? And I was like, yeah, sure, I can keep going, but I don't have any plots right now. And it was to a point where we really had to kind of hit the ground running to keep the book going. And so the first thing I pitched to them was, well, how about we do a Spider-Man Invincible team up for an issue? And I never in a million years thought that they would do it. And so Tom Brevoort, responded, oh yeah, there's some parameters that we'd have to meet, but we can totally do that. And so we ended up doing that, which was awesome. But then I had, again, no ideas. And League of Losers was actually a later storyline that was going to happen in a Sleepwalker series that I had been doing at Marvel that got canceled before it ever got published. They put out this thing called Epic Anthology that had a one-issue Sleepwalker story by myself and Corey Randolph, who is doing the new book Excellence that's coming out from Skybound and Image Comics in, I'm going to say May. I don't know for sure.
Works for us.
But I just dug that old plot out and was like, this has enough Marvel characters in it that this will work as a Marvel team-up story.
It's a team-up.
Yeah, so that was a result of me just scrambling through old notes trying to figure out a way to keep that book going. But it was a lot of fun because they had turned Speedball into Penance at that point, and I remember Dan Slott was very excited because he was like, he and I weren't too thrilled. I don't want to put too many words in his mouth, but I believe he and I were both not too thrilled about the direction with Speedball turning into Penance, and he was like, oh, it's brilliant. You totally have a real Speedball that's like tucked away in the time stream thanks to that Losers arc.
Those were my thoughts when I read it. So, yes, thank you very much for giving me something to hold on to through those
That's
dark
awesome.
and penancy times.
Yeah, but that was a lot of fun.
All right.
Okay, go. I don't mean to keep you.
Hi, Robert. My name's Sean. I work here at Famous Faces. I wanted to thank you so much. You wrote my favorite superhero comic of all time with Invincible. Like, no joke, that is my favorite superhero comic. I cannot thank you enough. That was probably the best beginning, middle, and end to a superhero story ever.
Good.
What
I wrote that ending fully convinced that people were going to hate it. So I love it when anyone says they like the way that book ended.
Yeah, what made you decide it was the perfect time to end this book? Like, what was the natural conclusion for it?
I mean, I had the big Viltrumite arc planned, and at a certain point, after we had done the big Viltrumite war and gotten past issue 100, I didn't necessarily run out of story, but if you read the whole arc of Invincible, you kind of see that there's a huge progression from story to story, and every story kind of tops the next one, and things get bigger and the scale gets bigger, and there's a sense of escalation over the course of the whole series, and that's something that's very difficult to maintain. And so I kind of hit a point where I was like, we've had this giant galactic war, and this was while I was still writing that story. I was like, I don't really know where to go next, and I had a bunch of plots in mind, but eventually I started thinking, well, it'd be really cool. I'm going to spoil Invincible for anyone who hasn't read it. So I guess,
It's been out for a year now. It's
you'll
fine.
get it by the time the Amazon series starts. But I was like, it would be really cool if the arc of this book was Mark gaining control of the Viltrumites and turning the Viltrumites into the thing his father lied and said they were in the beginning. So turning them into a force for good in the universe. And I was like, that'd be a real great, natural conclusion to this story. And I got really excited about the idea of ending the book because Invincible had always been a superhero comic that played against type and tried to, zig where other superhero comics zag. And, that's why we had stories where the villain actually wins and, stories where, some superheroes die and definitely stay dead. And then we played with the tropes of superheroes coming back to life and all kinds of different stuff over the run. And I thought it'd be really cool to do a superhero book that ended, because no superhero book has like a definitive, not no, but most of the big corporate, you're never going to have like this definitive end to a Batman series and it'd be like, well, that's it for Batman, and look back and go, oh, Batman had a linear story with a beginning, middle, and end. And so when I had the idea that, would kind of turn Invincible into that and make it encompass this overarching story, I kind of got excited about it. And at the same time, Ryan Otley and I were talking. Well, actually, I made this decision like a year before Ryan did this. But I had kind of thought, oh yeah, I can end this book, and I'll probably end this book around like 150 or somewhere. I don't know exactly how it'll break up. And Ryan wrote me and was like, hey man, I've been doing this book for like 15 years. I was wondering, have you ever thought about wrapping it up? Because I might want to draw something someday that's not Invincible. And I was like, well, funny you should say that. I was thinking about ending this book at like 144 or so. And at that point, I think we were doing like 115 or 120 or something like that. Like, oh my God, jeez, I didn't know we were going to be doing it that much longer. I wasn't thinking about that. And so that's when I came up with the idea of bringing Corey back for a 6-issue arc before we led into the final 12 issues, just to give Ryan a little bit of a breather as we got to the end. And it was great having the co-creator Corey Walker come back and do stuff. I apologize if my answers are too long and rambly. I feel like you guys get bored halfway through the conversation, and then I'm just like, I gotta wrap it up.
No, I can listen to you talk about Invincible all day. Trust me, I'm good.
But it was a lot of things. I just really thought that it would be cool if I had like a definitive ending to the book and do something that most mainstream superhero books don't do.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, and then thank you for Skyping in with us. That's very cool of you, man. We appreciate it.
And then as a funny aside, I'm getting really amused with trying to get you guys to stay there while you're trying to get up. So,
well, we got a line of people building up, so I don't want to hold anyone and then have them not ask questions.
Oh, okay, I'll go faster at some point.
Oh, no, you're good.
Thank you. We got plenty of time. It's not even the time for me to start yet. I'm still 2 minutes early. But I was just going to say, now I've already forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, when I was writing the final issue of Invincible, I had tons of ideas for how to keep the book going, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to bring Invincible back like next month. I got to do all these ideas. And then after I stopped writing the book for a while, I was like, this is fun. This is fun having free time. So maybe I'll get to those later. But anyway, go ahead.
All right. Hi, I'm James. I also work here. It's
Hey,
really
James.
awesome of you to do this for us.
I hope it's all employees that were brought in here to ask me questions.
No, we just took executive privilege on it.
All right.
So I had a question about Marvel Zombies, actually.
Okay.
I was curious if you had other ideas planned, because like 3, 4, and 5 seem kind of off, but like Marvel Zombies Returns felt like it kind of like brought everything back from what you did. So I was just curious if you had already thought of other ideas, if you were going to continue the story, where it would have gone.
I feel like if I had kept going, everyone would have hated what I did. Because if you look at Marvel Zombies, when I got assigned Marvel Zombies, Mark Miller had already done the Spider-Man, or the Ultimate Fantastic Four story where it set them up. And he had set them up as being from a universe where all the superheroes turned into zombies. And that's very limiting story-wise. So when I started Marvel Zombies, it was like, okay, I have to tell a story where every superhero in the Marvel Universe is a zombie. And so then I kind of broke the rules and came up with a few superheroes that were still human, which was kind of cheating because in the Fantastic Four story, it said everyone was zombies. And so I was kind of back in a corner where, you have to write a story where everyone's zombies, and that's when I kind of made it a comedy and, just figured out a way to tell a story where everyone's a zombie. But if you read the second book, that's when they eat Galactus at the end of the first miniseries, and they get cosmic, and they turn into zombie Galactuses, and then they're traveling the cosmos. I don't think people like that so much.
I thought it was cool that you brought in a bunch of random characters that made sense that they would have survived and become zombies themselves.
Yes.
The characters you chose, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. They probably would have held off long enough to become zombies and not just devoured.
Well, it always bugged me that you could actually see zombie Vision in the Ultimate Fantastic Four, and I was like, Vision's a robot. I don't know how that works. But I think if I had done Marvel Zombies 3, it would have been weirder and zanier than what I had been doing, and it would have just kept getting stupider and stupider. Also, I was just really trying so hard to get Marvel to censor me. Worse and worse stuff to happen to these characters, and they never said anything. So I would have eventually worn out my welcome if I had kept going. So I'm glad that I left when I did.
Awesome, thank you. Just one other quick thing. If you talk to Scott M. Gimple, tell him I'm a huge fan of his work on Fillmore.
Okay, will do.
All right, thanks.
He never shuts up about Fillmore, so that'll make him real happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's always like, when I was working on Fillmore, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no one cares. No one knows what that cartoon is.
Hi, my name's Alex. I do not.
Hey,
work,
Alex.
I do not work here.
Okay, good.
I've been subscribed to a few different of your comics. I've been reading Die 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 and Oblivion Song, but my question's about the TV show and basically what were the main influences on Judith? How after the time jump she became the level of importance she's now starting to take on, and was it her dad? How much did she remember him? How much is it the influence of the group?
Yeah, well, I think that's something we're going to explore a lot moving forward. The fact that because she was so young when he died, she's not really going to have much of a memory of Rick Grimes. Sorry, he didn't die. Left the show. Whatever, man. You know what I meant.
He gone.
So you know, her father, Rick Grimes, is more of a legend. I think that's why she wears the hat. That's why she carries the gun. She wants to kind of live up to this impossible ideal of him, which is going to be kind of a fun thing. I mean, the inspiration for her, was definitely like it's kind of like a reimagining of Carl. We're taking the Carl stories from the comics and splitting them up amongst a few characters moving forward. As we do, just to keep some of those elements from the Whisperer story and different things that happened alive. And so you'll see some, memorable things that, like Carl's relationship with Negan, that will manifest with Judith. I think we've seen a little bit of that already. I always, in my old age, I sometimes lose track of what episodes have aired and what haven't yet. So
That's fine with me.
real tough one for me. Because like we're working on season 10 right now, and so I've got that bouncing around in my head, and it's a whole mess. But anyway, yeah, I mean that's pretty much the basis for bringing her in, and I thought it'd be a great thing to explore with the time jump and everything. And I think that character is just absolutely awesome. Despite the fact that I have tried to kill her as a baby like times in the show.
Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot.
Looking good.
Hi, Robert. I'm going to ask you about all the obscure stuff.
Okay, good.
So when are we going to get those big, massive, astounding Wolfman and Super Dinosaur companions? Because I want them.
We did, shame on you, bad fan, we did an Astounding Wolfman hardcover that collects everything. I guess it's technically not a paperback compendium. So yeah. And then the Super Dinosaur, is that the other one that you mentioned?
Yep.
So yeah, the 4 volumes of Super Dinosaur is still in print. We don't have any plans for a compendium just yet, but we haven't talked about it much, but there's actually a Super Dinosaur cartoon that is airing in Canada as we speak, that Skybound by company produced, and in partnership with this company Spin Master. And we're working behind the scenes to bring that cartoon to the U.S. Very soon. And once that happens, hopefully there will be a lot of fervor over the whole Super Dinosaur thing. And we're hoping to reprint that in some cool ways and do all kinds of stuff around that. So possibly in the next year or so.
Oh, cool. Be like the fire starter.
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Robert.
great. Thanks a lot, man.
No problem.
Hi, Robert. How are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
My name is Scott. I'm good. I am a big horror movie nutball. I have a Facebook page and all that stuff, but I have a general question for you. Thanks for doing this anyway, and your beard is awesome.
Thank you.
Not me. Yeah, you beat me bad. So my question is, in a personal opinion, is there a horror movie or television show that you think is really underrated or underappreciated as far as like its influence on work you do or work that everybody does? The whole genre of modern horror and pop culture in general.
Huh.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
No. Don't ask me questions that involve itemized lists. But I don't know. I mean, I don't really remember. I don't know that a lot of people talk about the Friday the 13th television series from the late 80s, early 90s. But I mean, as a kid, I remember watching every episode being pissed off that Jason Voorhees didn't show up.
yeah.
And I feel like in the title sequence, they showed Jason Voorhees' mask. And so I was always like, oh, this week's going to be the week. It's going to happen. I can't wait.
I tell you, I mean, and that was such a weird show. It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. I'm that old, so that's you can probably tell. So.
But that show's really good. I mean, remember The Outer Limits being real scary? And that was really cool. I mean, it's cool that Black Mirror is bringing back like anthology stuff, but there really should be actually, heck, Greg Nicotero is producing a Creep Show, which is going to be a horror anthology. It's coming out soon. So yeah, I think it's on the Shudder app thing that AMC manages or owns or something. I don't know. I'm not good at this. Are we recording this? This is all going on live, right?
I was going to ask, is it okay if I post your answer on a Facebook page, or I mean, are you okay with that?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Do whatever you want.
Okay, good, thank you. So yeah, I've seen. I think Jordan Peele is doing the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
And that's going to be on CBS Access or something like that. I think it should be on the main channel, but whatever. But yeah, that kind of the thing, and I think
CBS All Access already for Star Trek Discovery,
Right.
starring Martin Green.
Oh yeah, and I think that like your show may have helped with those kind of shows bringing back, with Black Mirror and stuff, because it was so popular when it started. I really think it's big for the industry in general. So thank you again.
I'm not going to take any credit for that.
Yeah. So,
So whatever.
thank you again for that. So I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you
Awesome.
very much. All right.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Hereditary, watch that movie. It's great.
I don't know that one, so I'll check.
Oh yeah, I mean it came out last year. It's brand new.
Who made that?
Hereditary.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't even seen what's the one, Get Out. I haven't even watched that one yet. So
Oh my God, you're no horror fan. Get out of here.
I'm forward. I'll see you. No,
Never answering your question. Be gone.
thank you very much.
Haven't seen Get Out.
How you doing? My name is Jerry. I'm a huge
All right,
fan.
Jerry.
Love
How
the
are you?
comic and the show. Been on both since day one.
Great.
My question is a character that I couldn't stand on the TV show. And I
Okay.
would love for you to put him in the book so you can kill him again. T-Dog.
You didn't like T-Dog?
He was awful.
What was your least favorite thing about him?
He was dumb. A zombie horde's chasing you down and you cut your arm on a broken glass.
Well, I would blame the writers more than I would the other character, but whatever. I probably wrote that episode myself. Sorry to hear that.
Even if you could introduce him for like 2 panels, or even in the background just with a shirt with the little emblem that says T-Dog and kill him. I
I'm
love
just
it.
going to say T-Dog was in the Woodbury segment of the comic. He wasn't named, but you can see him. There's an issue where you can find him. I'm sure he's been eaten. I'll just say that some random character that got killed in the background of those issues was T-Dog to make you feel better. Is that good?
Well, that was the fitting death for him if it was like nondescript then. That was a fitting death if it was nondescript, so that works for me. Appreciate that.
Great. I do have to say, Irony Singleton, the actor that played T-Dog, is amazing and awesome, and I enjoyed him on the show. But tastes do vary. That's totally fine.
Definitely, but I love your work.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put him in Invincible and kill him.
I will bring back Invincible just to do that.
That works for me. Thank you.
You heard it here first.
Okay.
I was just kidding about Beth. She's fantastic. I love with the lights out. It's like all horror movie-esque,
Yeah,
and
it's like movie
like,
night
if you
here.
have a Halloween mask to put on before you sit down, like when you
Right.
sit down, come into frame.
Like
with
it's a
the Halloween
horse,
mask on,
and there's a
that
horse head here.
should
Yeah.
Scare me.
All right, my name is Michael. I work here at the shop, and it's really nice to meet you. And big fan. And I actually have two questions. First question: what's your favorite comic book?
My favorite comic book.
Your favorite
Ooh.
comic book?
Man, of all time, I would have to say Savage Dragon. I mean, it's the series that I've enjoyed the most.
Okay.
Some of the content in the newer issues is not my favorite,
Right.
just because the book got like way mature.
Right. They got it
like,
nowhere.
in a real jarring way. Shame on you, Eric Larson. I am a Puritan or
Right.
whatever. But anyway, I still love that book and I love Eric's work. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like all kinds of stuff. Astro City, great book. I don't know. I like Saga now. Saga's really great. I keep telling Brian he's got to bring that book back sooner.
Right. That's the Rick. That's his shit. His saga.
Oh.
Okay. So my second question: what's your favorite thing that you have written? Like, what was your favorite thing to work on out of all the stuff you've written?
I mean, it's hard to play favorites. I usually enjoy whichever project I'm working on at the time the most, which is the honest truth.
Right.
But if I look back, like I do have a certain fondness for things. I think, and it's like some of the more obscure stuff that tends to have a little soft spot in my heart for.
Great.
There's a book I did called Destroyer with Corey Walker.
I love that book. That's my favorite thing that you've done is Destroyer.
Oh, awesome. No, I had a lot of fun doing that, and working with Corey is the best. He really pushes me to do my best work, and we talked out that story a lot. A lot of that stuff was suggested by him, and it was like a real collaboration on that series. And so I look back at that book, and I regret that I did it at Marvel because it's all original characters. That
Right.
could be their own book.
They were like old Atlas characters, weren't they, or something?
Well, they were, like the name Destroyer and the name Scar, like those are old Atlas characters. For the most part, most of the characters in that are original, and I purposefully didn't really use anything from Destroyer or Scar. Like there's, very little of their story that's not original. But yeah, because I kind of wrote that like it was as if Destroyer had existed since the Golden Age.
Okay.
And had, I mean, it had existed since the Golden Age, but the idea was that there had been a book coming out every month for 50 years, and that's how much the story had evolved from that.
Right.
Because if you compare like Captain America comics to Captain America back then, it's nothing like the character is now. So that's kind of what I was playing with. But I like that book.
I say, I love your answer because I love that book, and that's one of those like when he deep sixes his brother in the first issue. I was like, where is he gonna go from here? Like that was ruthless. That was like a last issue event, and you put it in the first issue, and I'm a big fan, and thank you for doing this.
Cool. I love it when he fights the Grim Reapers at the end. Anytime you can kind of stupid as a character fighting a bunch of Grim Reapers.
Right. It's like his bump tinder slowing him down. He's like, I still got this.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool, man. Great talking to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hello.
My main question is that like me and my friend are writing a comic, and like we don't know where to go with it. So what do you think is like the best way to put yourself out there?
It's very difficult to get a comic off the ground if you're just writing. It's much easier and still very difficult if you can find an artist to actually turn it.
We're both artists. We're both artists. So.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so you're halfway there. So you guys are writing and drawing the book together?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So how far into it are you?
We're still in like the first comic itself.
Okay.
First issue.
I mean, do you have a number of pages done, or do you have 8 pages done?
We wanted to do anywhere from like 30 to 36 pages.
Okay.
And we wanted to make like a couple issues of it. We didn't like plan exactly how many. but
Yeah,
it's gonna be a complete spoof. Like, it's gonna be idiotic.
Cool.
Like, its main inspirations are things like Monty Python and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Awesome.
where it's gonna be ridiculous.
That's great. Well, so when I was starting out, the thing that you had to do was you had to figure out how to print your comic, and then you could either get it distributed by Diamond, that gets all the comics into stores, or you could print it up yourself and like talk to stores individually and get them to carry your comic. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen some locally produced comics in that store, possibly. But the great thing about, living in the future like we do now is that you don't really have to do that anymore. You could start an Instagram and actually put pages up as you draw them. You could get a Patreon going and, goad your friends and family into giving you $1 a month to keep doing that book, and try and build an audience that way. See, I'm giving you ideas. There's just no limit to what you could do, and if you can build an audience online and then possibly publish it yourself, which is actually much easier now with all the print-on-demand services that are out there now. If you just Google print on demand, you could probably find a place that can handle that stuff. Are you laughing? Are you already ahead of me on that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. But anyway, gosh. So is there no advice? I have no advice for you that you don't already have.
No.
But yeah, I mean, the toughest thing is finishing it and making it good. That's a thing. I have a comic book that no one will ever see that I did before Battle Pope, which was the first comic that I ever published. I drew that comic myself. I'm not a very good artist, so that book looks terrible. And I rushed through that book. I mean, it probably would have been a little bit better if I hadn't forced myself to, do it in X amount of time. But I was kind of rushing myself to make sure I got it done, just to convince myself that it was something I could do. And that ended up being a, pretty terrible product that never really went anywhere. I don't regret doing that because I learned a lot from that process, and that helped me on Battle Pope and all of my books moving forward. But I would say, just definitely try to make sure that you're, giving yourself as much time as you need, and do something that you can be proud of. Unlike my first comic, which is frankly embarrassing.
Oh, I have a bunch of notebooks just filled with comics I made when I was like 5.
Well, I was 20. But I get what you're saying.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you. Good luck with it. That's awesome.
Hi, Robert. How you doing? My name is Not Scott.
Okay.
And I'm a great horror fan. You were talking about horror movies, and
Yeah.
I forgot to hit the record button last time. So, yeah. So it's me again.
Great.
Your arch enemy. I'm gonna hit the record button. So check this out. How about a recommendation other than Hereditary and Get Out for a horror movie that maybe a new one, an old one, doesn't really matter, that I need to watch or everybody in this room needs to watch?
There's a great Australian horror movie that is called Undead, I think is what it's called. It might be hard to find, but I saw that a long time ago. It came out probably around 2005, 2004, something like that.
Okay.
It's kind of a comedy zombie movie, in the vein of like Return of the Living Dead or something. It's really great.
Not as spooky as Shaun of the Dead, maybe, or is it that far?
Shaun of the Dead is Shaun of the Dead has more heartfelt emotion and drama to it. This is much more fun.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And then maybe just as a little follow-up, how about a franchise? You were talking about Friday the 13th. Is Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street your favorite franchise? Do you have one?
I don't know. I really like the Conjuring movies.
I know the universe is large now. It really is.
Yeah.
It's that's a good pick.
Yeah.
I like it. So
Those were really good. I always enjoyed the Hellraiser series. That was probably one that I would have put above like Freddy and Jason and all that stuff.
I would too. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that and the follow-up question. So I hope you like the masks, though. So.
Yeah, that was very. I knew it was going to happen at some point.
Yep, I'm probably the only person in the building with one, so it's all good. So thank you again.
Thanks, man.
Hello, Robert. My name's
Hello.
David. Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah.
I've always been a big fan of the games you did in conjunction with Telltale for Walking Dead and everything. I've enjoyed them so far. I just haven't had a chance to play the last bits of content since you guys took over the last publishing for the last few. But I've thoroughly enjoyed everything up to this point, and I'm just curious, after Telltale fell apart and anything like that, is there anything else you would try and adopt into something similar on your own, or anything else going forward?
I mean, we're not looking to necessarily, bring in more of the Telltale properties, just because, what we had was a unique situation with Walking Dead because we were the licensed owner, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty easy thing. Like if we were to say try to bring back Telltale's Batman series, then we'd have to have a conversation with Warner Brothers about getting the rights to Batman. Same with that Wolf Among Us and things like that. But I will say that once we've taken this game on, it really has kind of educated us into a lot of the ins and outs of the game business, and we have been expanding Skybound Interactive around that. We're producing a ton of great games through Skybound Interactive. We plan to do more of that stuff, some of it involving Walking Dead, some of it not. You might find some other Skybound properties getting turned into games in the next few years. So there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out of Skybound Interactive, and that's actually a big push inside of Skybound is doing more video games. So hopefully you'll see a lot more cool stuff very soon.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just curious if you were thinking about maybe trying to adopt something like Invincible or not. I know I saw Thief of Thieves games came out, but I haven't had a chance to try that one out yet. So just,
Let's do. I hear it's very good. I've enjoyed it.
It looked really good. I like the style of it. It looked really good. It looked a lot like they just brought the comic to life, and I always like it whenever they can achieve stuff like that because it really does help with the immersion of everything.
It's got like a lot of heist stuff in it where you have to like sneak around and perform functions, and it's almost like a puzzle solving game because of that. It's really cool.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Cool.
Hey, Robert, Jonathan again. Your
Hi, man.
head placement's still good, so keep it right there. Right there. Okay. Another question. The Walking Dead merchandise is all over the place, and I heard that you vetoed a Walking Dead cologne once.
Yeah.
So my question is there any other wacky things they try to stamp the Walking Dead logo on? And also, what the hell is that cologne supposed to smell like?
Well, that was my question. Because I was like, I don't think that something associated with zombies should have fragrance products. But yeah, I mean, there's been a number of things from time to time. There's been like zombie beef jerky and things like that I haven't been too into. I'm not really a fan of Walking Dead food products. I think that's something that we should probably try to avoid. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not really any big stinkers that come to mind. I mean, we definitely do a lot of products. So it's entirely possible that there's a couple things out there that I should regret, but probably don't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty proud of our merchandising program just because I feel like for the most part everything that we've done, makes sense and is something that fans of The Walking Dead will want. And I am very mindful of trying to make sure that we don't stray too much into like, Walking Dead surfboards or and stuff like that. So yeah, we did guitars though. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Hello.
Hi, how are
My
you?
name is Tiffany, and I'm going to derail us and get controversial for a second.
Oh, no.
I want to know, what is your preference?
Button.
What do you need me to do?
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Okay. So, I want to know, Star Wars or Star Trek?
That's a tough one for me. I don't know. I have a hard time picking, to be completely honest. I feel like Star Trek has more stories and better stories, just because if you look at 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, that's an amazing epic that doesn't really have a comparison in the Star Wars universe. But you could argue that every Star Wars movie is better than every Star Trek movie, so I don't know. I'm a little torn.
Well, movies, yeah, but like generally,
Yeah,
I'm going by like TV show versus movies, And it's a question of which Star Trek.
I would have to pick Star Trek just because there's more of it, and I do enjoy it. But I love me some Luke Skywalker. I love me some lightsabers. It's definitely a tough decision. I'm trying to be as uncontroversial as possible. Any Star Wars fans out there, Solo wasn't that great. You got to admit it.
Oh my. I feel like I should say I love you, and you should say I know.
Great.
All right, I'm going to pass it off to someone else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm back, but not on behalf of myself this time. I had a friend who couldn't make it. A friend of the store texted me in with his all-important question. I wish I could make it. Ask him if Brit is ever coming back.
Possibly. I mean, there's no plans just yet, but I really miss I haven't done a 48-page one-shot in a long time, and I've always kind of kicked around the idea of just coming back with a 48-page Brit one-shot. So I'll probably do that at some point, but I don't know if it'll be anytime soon. So yeah, I think there will definitely be more Brit eventually.
All right, I'll tell him to not hold his breath, but hold his breath.
Have some hope, but not a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Not too much hope.
Hey, how's it going, Robert?
Hey, it's going great, man. How are you?
Not bad. Hanging in there.
Good.
So my question to you is, during the TV adaptations, obviously, during the more previous comic books and while that was going on, did you have any moments that made you cringe when they adapted it to the TV because they changed the story, or did you have any that made you feel like, I should have thought of that?
There have been a lot of moments where I've thought, I should have thought of that. Yeah, I mean, just, I don't know. That happens a lot. There have been different points, especially in the writer's room, where like somebody will throw something out like offhand, like, oh, well, wouldn't this happen because of this happening? And I'd be like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? But yeah, I mean, even back to the very first episode with how Frank Darabont, when he wrote the pilot, heightened the relationship between Morgan and his wife, and really kind of took what I did in the comic and drew it out to a huge degree. I mean, the scene where he has the gun on her and can't pull the trigger is something that is not in the comic at all, and it takes what's already there and really kind of, builds it up and takes it to another level. There have been many times over the course of the show where that's happened. As far as cringeworthy stuff, I mean, not really. There have been a couple of times where, like I've written things in episodes back when I was regularly writing on the show, there'd be like, well, you can't do that because of budget, or you can't do that because of this, just like realities of like how to produce a TV show that was fairly new to me at the time.
Yeah, what kind of Star Wars?
Sometimes I would find that frustrating. There's a special soda that's bottled in Winchester, Kentucky called Ale81. That somebody in that area might have had some, but it's kind of like a ginger ale kind of soda. And we had an episode in, I think it's like season 5 that I wrote, where a guy was supposed to have a special gun safe in his house, and it was a soda machine. And so I worked so hard to make sure we could get the clearance to make that an Ale8 machine, and it was something that I was very excited about. And got the clearance, showed up on set, Ale8 machine, filmed the scene, was so happy. And then when we edited the show together, we were like, yeah, we don't need this scene, we're cutting this scene, and I was just devastated.
You saying that actually reminded me of another thing.
Uh-huh.
So the Doctor during the Governor's turn in the saga, he was testing with the Doctor's daughter, trying to get her to recognize any bit of her humanity from the past. And they concluded that there was no humanity left, just kill them all, who cares. but in the very first, you mentioning the pilot made me remember. At the very when Rick first sees that little girl, the very first zombie he sees, she goes up and picks up the teddy bear. How would she do that, and why would she do that if she had no humanity left?
I don't think you have to have humanity to, pick up an item. I think that you've seen.
Why would she care about it if it's not a brain or a body that she can eat? Though that was my question.
I think that assuming that she cares about that stuffed animal because she's picking it up is us kind of imposing emotion on something that doesn't have emotion. The same way that you might, think that like a tiger is doing something for a certain reason, but it's actually just an animal doing something because of its instincts.
Okay.
Because
she was a child when she was taken over. That makes sense.
Yeah,
She
but
has child instinct still. But I think it's someone else's turn, man. I took 2, so thank you much. Appreciate you doing this.
Great. I didn't have a good answer for that. You may have caught me on something, so fine to move on. There was the first episode. We didn't know what zombies did back then. Leave me alone.
Hi, how are you?
There's actual zombies in season 1. I think in the second episode, climbing fences. I mean, come on. Mistakes were made. Go ahead.
First of all, I love Destroyer. It's
Great.
amazing. Best Max book by far.
Awesome.
I guess my question is, in the foreword to Marvel Zombies, in the hardcover, you write this really nice, forward, I guess. But in it, you talk about how you don't want to be pigeonholed as the zombie guy.
Great.
I guess retroactively, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, obviously you've done more than Walking Dead. I wouldn't say that's your peak achievement. You've done a whole lot more. But do you feel pigeonholed, I guess, still, or do you think or do you still think about that? I guess. How would you react to that retroactively?
I still feel that way. First, I would say that Walking Dead is definitely my peak achievement. I have done nothing that has reached the level of success Walking Dead has. I use that though to fuel me to a certain extent. I know deep down that when I die, my tombstone will probably say something about The Walking Dead on it. At the very least, my obituary will mention that, first and foremost. That'll probably, most likely be the only thing that I'm really known for as time goes on. If I'm even known for that as time goes on, as Conan O'Brien says, we will all be forgotten. But I do take the challenge of, okay, I did The Walking Dead, it was very successful. I wonder if I can do something else that can reach that level of success. I don't want to be the Walking Dead guy. I would prefer not to be known as the Walking Dead guy. And you do that by creating other things that also, you could be known for. And so that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I work so hard. That's why I, have Die 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 coming out, and Oblivion Song coming out, and I'm working on different TV shows and all kinds of different things behind the scenes. That's why I did Outcast. To try and do something that would overshadow the friggin' Walking Dead. It's driving me nuts. But that said, it doesn't mean I don't like The Walking Dead. It doesn't mean I don't, love zombies. I appreciate everything that the fans have, brought me by supporting The Walking Dead. It's still a project that is, I'm deeply passionate about. I love The Walking Dead. I just, want to also do other things. That's all. So it wasn't, in that introduction for Marvel Zombies, it wasn't me saying, oh my God, too much zombie stuff. I don't want to do that. It was just me kind of voicing my desire to, hopefully let people recognize that I do other things. Superhero comics.
Right. Okay, I just think about that quote sometimes. And I don't know. Thank you.
Cool, man. Oh, thanks a lot.
Hi, Robert. My name's Ryan, and I just wanted to start off with saying I'm a big fan of your work. I think you're amazing. Back to the zombies, though, because that's what I mean. So,
it's all I'll ever be known.
Nah, yeah, too. I'm sorry. So, I'm a film guy, so I gotta ask you a question. If you could tell me your top 3 zombie movies. If you want to just give me your top 1, that's fine, but big horror fan, like zombie movies. You have a top 1, top 3?
My top 1 is definitely Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. Okay, I like Dawn of the Dead. I mean, that's my
I
number
love
one.
Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is amazing. Dawn of the Dead, I don't know. It's definitely up there.
Okay.
The zombies have that toothpaste skin though, and that bugs me. I think the zombies look way better in Day of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, definitely up there. I think that is an excellent zombie movie. And Lucio Fulci's Zombie is probably my third place. It's got an underwater scene where a zombie fights a shark. That's pretty awesome.
All right.
It's also awesome because it was done in the 70s when to have a zombie fight a shark in a movie, they put a guy in zombie makeup underwater and had a real shark attack him. That's just how they made it. And I believe, and again, this is the 70s in Italy, I believe they removed the shark's teeth so that it would not be able to kill the actor. So that is how they made that scene. And it's crazy. It is absolutely a wonderful thing to behold. Even how many years later is that? I'm just going to say 100 because I'm bad at math.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. 28 Days Later, you like that?
I enjoy 28 Days Later. I think it's a great great movie.
Okay.
Not technically a zombie movie though.
I can get you. I'll give it to you. All right. Well, I won't take too much of your time.
Don't think one of these. It's not a zombie movie. They're not zombies in that movie.
Okay. I like it.
It's a great movie.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree.
No, come back.
I'm back.
All right.
All right. So I wanted to ask about your other two comics that I currently read. First up, Oblivion Song. Currently, Nathan and Ed are getting to the point where they're like, at least developing some kind of understanding of each other's worldviews. Do you think there's ever a point coming where they'll adopt each other's worldviews, or one of them of the other?
What issue have you read? Have you not read issue 12?
I think I am an one issue behind. I don't know if they're a big spoiler.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but maybe that happens in issue 12.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that series is very much about people who are very close, not necessarily seeing someone else's side of the story or someone else's perspective on life. So it's Ed wanting something for himself and Nathan wanting something for Ed, and both of them not really seeing eye to eye on why it is the other one is, chasing what they're chasing, or not really seeing what it is that could make them happy. The fact that Nathan sees Ed just stranded in this wasteland, and he wants to save him from that, and he feels guilty for that, is kind of against the whole thing where Ed loves living there and sees it as a real paradise that has been brought down. And they don't really see eye to eye on that until issue 12.
Okay. I guess I'm reading to do.
And then moving forward, the dynamic to the relationship changes a little bit. So keep reading.
Okay. And I will preface Die with I have not read the most recent issue either, but I don't want to give away the finale to the series or anything. But at what point do you reach a level where it cannot be outdone, the level of violence or messed up that is going on in those issues?
Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't reach that level. We're working on the second arc right now, and we got some pretty crazy stuff planned. That book is absolutely insane. I feel like that's the most fun I'm having in comics right now, working on that series. I just love it.
It's been a fun ride.
I feel like that book's going to get me in trouble at some point. But I love all the characters in that book and the different places that we take them. So I appreciate it. I'm very glad that you're enjoying it. But read issue 8, man. We go to some pretty crazy places. Would you be surprised to learn there's a spaceship in issue 8?
Absolutely not.
Great.
All right, thank you.
All right. If anyone else out there who I can't see is not reading Die, shame on you. I feel like everyone left. Are there still people there?
We're here. We're just hanging.
Great.
So I'm back, and I had a question about Jubilee.
Okay. Love Jubilee. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Did they give you pretty much a blank check on her, or how
No.
did that happen? Like, did you pitch an
Okay.
idea, or did they come
So
in?
I did a Jubilee story in X-Men Unlimited.
Right.
And then once I did that, they said, "Oh, we're really looking to do a Jubilee series." And I was like, at that point, I was desperate to do anything that brought in any kind of income. So I was like, "I love Jubilee. Jubilee's my favorite character. I will totally do a Jubilee series. I've got so many ideas. Let's do this. Let's do this." And they were like, "We want Jubilee to be about a teenager in a mall, and we don't want any supervillains, and we just want her to do teenage girl stuff." And so that's when I came up with
so
the
they got a
idea.
white male to do it.
Yeah, well, this was back when that was okay. Yeah, Devin Grayson and Gail Simone were busy. Yeah, it was terrible. I shouldn't have done that comic. But anyway, so I had to do an X-Men comic that had no X-Men villains in it and didn't really deal with superheroes at all. So that's why I had her have some long-lost aunt in Los Angeles that moved her out to Los Angeles. And for the first 3 issues, I had very strict rules that, it was all just teen hijinks, and she met some other mutants in LA, and that's what the first 3 issues were. The book did so terribly that after the first issue came out, they decided to cancel it. So I had already done to issue 3, and I was told that issue 6 was going to be the last issue. From that point on, they did not care what I did. And so that's why I revealed that Jubilee's aunt was a robot, and that she had been working with the Yakuza, and that there were different people trying to kill her. That's also why I think they printed the recaps in that trade. The recaps for issues 4, 5, and 6 make no sense whatsoever. I just started recapping stories that never happened. So I think the recap for issue 5 is about Jubilee was abducted by an alien. She was taken to an alien world, and she fell in love with a prince, and she lived there for 1,000 years, and then she went back in time and came back to Earth, and now we're starting the story, and none of that happened. And so I would just
kind
write
of like
these.
the end of Goonies, where he says, "My favorite part was the octopus."
Yes, yeah. No, that was actually a filmed scene.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
they cut it
says
out.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got cut out. But anyway, yeah. And then I had Wolverine show up, and I believe I end that series on a pretty good cliffhanger too. I don't remember exactly what it was. I always wanted to put a word balloon on the cover of issue 6, because it's like Wolverine behind a couch with his claws popped, and Jubilee's kind of bored looking over at him. And I wanted her to say, "Too late, Wolverine, the series is already canceled." Because back then, you put Wolverine in a book to boost sales.
Right.
But they didn't let me put that word balloon on, which always annoyed me. But if you read that book again, pay attention to the fact that the first 3 issues are pretty boring and normal, and then the second set of 3 issues 4, 5, and 6, are absolutely insane.
All right.
So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that book. Awesome. I should write more Asian teenage girls in malls comics.
I don't know if that's allowed anymore. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Robert. David again. So, out of all the different things you've done subject matter-wise over all your books, is there anything that you haven't done yet that you want to make into another book sometime in the future, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of genres I would like to play with. I have some ideas for a Western. I'd like to do a Western comic at some point, even though conventional wisdom is that Westerns in any medium do not sell or do well at all, unless Quentin Tarantino's doing them. So I'd like to do that. I would also still like to do a romance comic at one point, just a straight up non-genre, no fantastical elements, romance comic, like the way that Alex Toth and other people would do comics back in the 50s and 60s. So yeah, I think that would be fun. I don't know if people would like that. I don't know if anyone would want that from me, but I don't care. So I don't know. There's definitely a lot of stuff I want to do. I've got some more sci-fi stuff that I want to do. But yeah, I'm not done with comics by a long shot.
Oh, yeah, no. That was actually one of the things I was going to say, because from what I've seen, most of the stuff in the Western genre is usually the most successful stuff usually has sci-fi elements to it.
Yeah, no, I won't be doing that. It'll just be cowboys shooting 6-shooters and riding on trains.
There you go. I mean, Red Dead was successful, so why not?
That's true. That's true.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you so much.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, hey.
What about you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a non-zombie related question for you, since you just don't want to be known as a zombie guy all the time. So,
Right.
I read a while back, this is one of my favorite horror movies, that's why I'm asking, but I read a while back that your production company were talking about making a remake of An American Werewolf in London. I
Yes.
just want to know if that's true or not, and if you're still on board about making that in the future, or...
I think I can publicly say that it is actively still in development.
Okay.
Don't think I can say anything past that,
Okay.
but it is actively still in development.
Right. And I know you're working with John Landis' son, apparently. He's supposed to be involved in it, so that's pretty exciting.
That was the thing that interested me about it. If a director could, come in and redo a movie that their father was known for, I thought that would be kind of a fun, challenge to see. Like, could Max Landis come in and do a movie as good as the one John Landis did?
Right. Well, I know, Jason Reitman's son, Ivan Reitman's son, Jason, he's doing Ghostbusters, which I'm pretty excited about that.
Yep.
So I think it's good. So I'm a huge Star Trek fan as well.
Years before American Werewolf in London.
What's
I'll
that?
say it.
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge Star Trek fan as well, so I was wondering, are you watching Star Trek Discovery? I know...
I'm a little
Seneca
behind,
Martin.
but I do. I really enjoy that show.
Yeah, I'm a purist when it comes to Star Trek, and I wasn't too sure about it, but after the first... Actually, I think halfway through the first season, I started to get really into it. I'm really enjoying it now, and the second season's awesome. And Seneca Martin Green's doing a real good job in it, so...
I just hope they... I don't know. I hope they just keep doing Star Trek shows. I'm very excited for that Picard show.
Right,
I know they've got Mike McCann doing or Mike McMahon, I think that's his name. Sorry, doing the animated Star Trek show for CBS All Access. So it's a very good time to be a Star Trek fan.
Yeah. I was disappointed that they pulled the plug on the Kelvinverse. I know a lot of people don't like those movies, but I thought they were great. So I was a bit disappointed when I heard that they were putting the fourth movie on hiatus, or maybe not even making it.
I think the fourth movie's on hiatus, but I don't think they've abandoned that series of movies yet.
No. Zachary Quinto was talking a couple of weeks ago, and he says he's hopeful that they'll get back on track for it. So.
That's what he said to me in person when he was recording voice work for Invincible.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks a lot. It's great seeing you.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good. My name's Mike. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Live long and prosper.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just had a question. Rick tells me that you have a particular fondness for the Spectacular Spider-Man series.
I do indeed.
My question is, what draws you specifically more towards that series than, Amazing Spider-Man?
Well, I mean, I like Amazing Spider-Man as well. I particularly enjoyed David Michelinie's run with Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson. I wasn't the hugest Spectacular Spider-Man fan. It was always the secondary Spider-Man book when I was growing up.
Right.
But looking back on it, the J.M. DeMatteis, am I pronouncing that right? His run on the book with Sal Buscema. Just absolutely spectacular comics. All the stuff with Green Goblin and the Vermin and the various different stories that they did. I just really love Sal Buscema's art. Like, looking back on it, I didn't necessarily appreciate it fully as a kid. But there was a time where old Rick was providing me with back issues. After I had done that signing there. Because he just said, I've got a warehouse of back issues. I don't know what to do. If you ever want anything, let me know. And so I'd be like, well, send me a run of Spectacular Spider-Man by Sal Buscema. And then a giant box would show up at my house. So yeah, now I just get all that stuff off of eBay. But yeah, no, I love Sal's stuff. Rick even got me a convention sketch of Spider-Man from Sal Buscema, which I still have. So thank you very much, Rick. That's why I'm doing this Skype.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, man.
And I'm back.
Great.
So, what were your favorite cartoons as a kid growing up?
Favorite cartoon, by far, Transformers. I still watch Transformers all the time. I have them on DVD. I wish I had more time to watch Transformers. I think if I had enough free time, I would just watch Transformers cartoons on a loop. Recently bought an album that had all the Transformers score from the old 80s cartoons.
Nice.
So I love that. I mean, I like Transformers and G.I. Joe.
What about Voltron?
Voltron was not my favorite as a kid. I liked it. The new Voltron that's on Netflix is absolutely spectacular. I'm actually watching that with my daughter. So that's a lot of fun. I love the show Mask. If anyone hasn't watched Mask, they put it on DVD a few years ago, and I watched it as a kid, so I bought it to make my kids watch it. I torture them by making them watch things I watched as a kid, whether they want to or not. And I was like, man, this cartoon is actually great. So I highly recommend Mask. If anyone has like a vague recollection, but you should dig that out. It's a really good cartoon.
All right. Take a look. Thank you.
All right. Great. As we're transitioning, I'll also say later on when I was older, Eon Flux. That cartoon is really insane and creepy and like really disturbing ways, and it's really awesome.
Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Hey, doing all right.
Well, appreciate all your work, love it. Now, another question for the zombie part. The zombie guy. So, in 2 issues, you wrote that it was really hard for you to come to this decision to kill off a certain person. I'm not going to say the name just in case. But, you said personally it was pretty tough for you.
Yeah.
Any insight on why you finally made that decision to go ahead and do it?
It's hard to talk about without spoiling who it was, but I'll do my best. I won't spoil it. I'll just not mention it. I'll just stop talking at a certain point if I can't navigate it too well. But I don't know. It was a very important character to the series, and it was somebody that had been in the series for such a long time, and they had evolved so much. I think the characters that I like the most, that excite me the most, are the ones that have changed so much over time. The thought of stopping that progression and not spending time with that character anymore was very difficult for me. And because that character in particular meant so much to so many other characters in the book, the way you write is through empathy. You have to empathize with your characters, and that's how you kind of write the stories in a way that rings true and that has feeling to it, because you're kind of feeling those feelings as you write them. And I very much, had the same affinity to the character that the other characters did, because I was writing those other characters have that affinity. They kind of bled into me. And so when I came to the realization that, it was time for that character to die, it was very, sad for me. I think I wrote in the back there, and I don't like admitting this stuff, but I was actually on an airplane while I was plotting that issue, sitting with people around me, and I started crying. And I was like, these people are going to think I'm a maniac, just sitting there looking at a piece of paper, crying. But yeah, it was real rough, but it meant a lot for the story. It propelled things moving forward. The fact that I was so emotional over it kind of told me that I was on the right path. And there were multiple alternatives to that story that I came up with. That were like, oh, well, maybe this happens instead. Maybe this happens instead. Maybe this happens, and that I almost spoiled things, but I stayed the course, and that's one thing that I have to do from time to time that is very difficult. There will be stories in the book where I'm like, oh, this is going to be rough. I don't know where I'm going to go from here. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I always kind of push myself to do it anyway, just because I feel like, if I'm not constantly doing things that are emotional and that are, kind of wrecking our characters to a certain extent, that I'm not true to the universe. Because I think The Walking Dead is a universe where, bad things happen and, people kind of persevere and move on from it the same way that in the real world, bad things happen and we have to kind of persevere and move on from it. So my commitment to staying true to that forced me to do a thing that I really did not want to do at the end of the day.
Last question. Oh.
Sure.
Oh. Negan?
There's something going down here, so it's getting dark here too.
Negan or Governor?
I mean, Negan, easily. I mean, Negan has been in far more issues. I've also tried to kill Negan multiple times, and Negan is one where, the story is like, no, it's better off if you don't kill him. And so I do change my mind. That's a weird thing to say after the way I just answered that last question. But I think I love Negan so much that I work against my own instincts and I don't kill him. Negan was actually supposed to die in his first storyline. That storyline was originally plotted to end with Rick going to the hilltop and delivering a box to Maggie that had Negan's severed head in it. I kind of ended up using that with, oh man, I don't want to spoil things. Negan eventually cuts a person's head off and delivers it to somebody else. I don't know how much. I don't know how caught up people are. But yeah, that character just really kind of got a life of its own as I was writing him, and I was like, oh, that's a character that became something else when I was writing him, and that was so weird and unique that I was like, I have to see where this goes, and so that's what's kept that character around, because he was not remotely as interesting as he ended up being, in the planning stages. But I don't know that I'd say I got bored, but as I was writing issue 100, I was like, there needs to be some panache here. Like, there needs to be something that, is distinctive about this character. And that's when I came up with his personality and, the profanity and the way he talks and everything. The character just kind of ran wild from there. So screw the Governor. Negan's way cooler.
All right. So that's what the new spin-off is about.
No comment.
Figured. Well, thank you.
All right. Good talking to you.
Hey, Robert again. How's it going, man?
Oh, great, man.
Recommend Transformers Prime, by the way. Really good.
I watched Transformers Prime.
Oh, right.
Also, Transformers Animated is really good.
Oh, really? Nice. I did not know that. I had a question.
Transformers Animated is better than Transformers Prime, but go ahead.
Oh. How dare you?
Shots fired.
Oh, it was. I have a question because I hear this argument a lot.
Solo wasn't very good. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't like Star Wars or Star Trek. I don't like them both. Just throw them in the garbage. Just you can just light them on fire. Future generations don't need any of those.
All right, that's too far. You've lost me.
Okay, fair enough. It happens.
Go ahead.
So I've been noticing this trend in comics lately. You hear this question a lot. John Suntress asks this question a lot in regards to length of creator-owned works. Typically, like the argument is that a diamond catalog is basically a phone book. So there's just so much content, especially even if you go into like different Patreons and whatever else.
Yeah.
That the question of length comes up a lot. We're like, well, should you really do an ongoing, or should you just do like a mini series and see where it goes? And you're seeing a lot of the new breed of creators, like you're doing Image or Boom or whatever. They kind of followed that model. That you and Eric Larson have the two longest modern comics going right now in America. So what I'm curious about is how you see that. Like, do you see it's like, well, no, like the audience is just going to stay with you if you keep delivering it, or do you see validity in the other way to where they're like, well, we gotta basically write it as a mini series or just
Yeah.
write it as like a big maxi series or something and limit ourselves from doing something longer.
Well, the less fun answer is that it's a case-by-case thing. It's, if your story is designed... I'm sorry, are you still talking?
No,
Sorry, there's like some mic feedback. Getting back into it. If your story is designed to be finite and it works best as a miniseries, or if it works best in chapters to a point where it could be a series of miniseries, well, then do that. But I feel like if you have an idea that only works if it's a long-running series, and I think The Walking Dead is a good example of that. The Walking Dead was supposed to be the zombie movie that never ends. That doesn't really work as a 6-issue series or a 12-issue series or a 24-issue series. It kind of needs to, have that life, to justify its existence. Otherwise it's just a short, finite zombie story, which we have a billion of. I think if it's something like that, you need to just do an on series. I think there's a lot of talk right now about, what the market will, allow, and well, maybe people just aren't into, reading a comic for a good long time, and so maybe we should all try and do 24-issue series or 36-issue series. And I think that, it's really a matter of content. I think if your story is strong enough and if your book can build a fan base, well, then the market will, accept it and allow it to exist. And so, again, I think it's a case-by-case thing. I think that myself as a reader, I would prefer something that, has a very long, sprawling story. I mean, I'm very excited about when Saga comes back. I think that the 54, 52, I don't know, the 52 issue run thus far that's come out is absolutely spectacular, and it's a great example of what you can do in comics with something that is designed to be around for a long time. And if they had just done 6 issues and decided to see where it goes, then, the world would be a worse off place because we wouldn't really, have Saga. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's my answer.
Fair enough. Yeah, because I worry, not really worry. Like, I enjoy ongoing stuff. I don't like stuff that ends, really. So, like, you're seeing a lot where, like, they're almost afraid to do, like, a super ongoing. Like, you don't hear people talk about, oh, I've arced this out to 100 issues, like with, 100 bullets, or I arced this out to be about 70 issues. They'll be like, oh, yeah, no, we got to, like, 35. That's usually the cutoff, is around 35. And I'm just, like, well, you could expand this to, there's enough stuff in here that you can make it last for a pretty long time.
Yeah. I mean, I've done both. I mean, I've got Outcast, which we've announced is going to be wrapping up at 48. I mean, we got past 35, but that is still a short series.
Comparatively.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just whatever the story dictates. I think that Invincible had a natural conclusion at 144. Walking Dead's going to go on, until the sun burns out. So, or until I burn out. But yeah. So I don't know. We'll see.
Right on. Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. So it is, I guess, 9 p.m. there. So I need to wrap up, but I will do 2 more questions if you guys still have questions. I feel like I'm just talking to a dark room now. But if there's anybody that still has questions, fight over getting the last 2, I guess.
All right. Hey. So my husband came up earlier and he was kicking himself because he wanted to mention that if it weren't for Walking Dead, we wouldn't have met. So thank you for that awesome. In some way.
That's great to hear. I mean, the relationship's going well, so that's a good thing, right?
Yes. It's a thank you, not a you'll pay for that.
Okay, good.
So you mentioned earlier, adapting Walking Dead for TV. Sometimes you run up against budgetary restrictions. With Invincible being adapted for an animated series, what are you most excited about that'll let you do that you couldn't do with a live action adaptation?
Well, one of the cool things about that is that we still have budgetary constraints because there are, certain things that you just can't do in animation, but they're not the same kind of things, and it doesn't affect the scope. So one thing that's really exciting about the Amazon animated series that we're doing is that it's going to have the same scope of a comic. You're going to see, people going to outer space. You're going to see amazing, insane epic battles, from episode to episode that are absolutely huge. And it's not going to be, somebody getting knocked off a horse and then waking up the next day going, "Oh man, that battle was crazy." So yeah, you'll get to, that was an early Game of Thrones seasons joke. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. And one of the things about it being 2D is that it's not a 3D generated cartoon. It's actually like a hand drawn cartoon, like the new Voltron series or Korra. Or the old Transformers cartoon, but the budgetary limitation for a 3D cartoon is in generating new characters, so that's why we didn't do it as a 3D cartoon. And 2D, it's not as difficult to introduce new characters, so that's why when that casting announcement came out, it was like, here's the 500 actors that are in it, because we are bringing in most of the characters that appear in roughly the amount of issues that we're adapting in our first season. So it's a sprawling, epic thing that we could never do in live action television. So it's going to be really cool.
Were there any characters you had to leave out that you are sad about, or are we going to see probably most of the favorites?
Yeah, no, I mean, I hesitate. I want to tell you things, but I think I'll get in trouble. It's entirely possible that Damien Darkblood is showing up in the first season, and I think when you get to Damien Darkblood in the first season, that shows you the wealth of different characters that we're going to be having in the show. I'm not confirming that, but there's going to be tons of characters, and so I don't think there's any fan favorites that'll be missing that people will be like, wait, where's that person?
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool stuff. Right. Thanks a lot. All right, last question. Who wants to make this? Is a lot of pressure.
Why is it a lot of pressure? It's me, Chris,
All right,
again, the tech guy.
good one.
Robert, thank you for showing up here tonight for us. This has been fantastic. You being an executive producer in The Walking Dead, and your creative talents and your writing of it, did you ever have the powers that be above you say, we like this or we don't like this, and you ended up putting it on the cutting room floor and never got to show it?
I have had disagreements, from time to time on the show. There have been times where someone's wanted to do something I didn't necessarily want to do, and I've talked them into it. There have been times where they want to do something I don't want to do, and they've talked me into it. But it's always been like an amicable, process, and we always get to a point where I'm comfortable moving forward. And so there hasn't really been anything that's gotten onto the show where I'm like, oh, that was a mistake. Like, they shouldn't have done that. They should have listened to me. Yeah. It's been great, coming from being a comic book writer and being welcomed into the show, and having the executive producer status, and having a seat at the table from the very beginning, and to be able to have my voice be heard. I haven't driven people too crazy over the course of that. But yeah, it's been great, being able to steer that ship where I can. I fought real hard not to kill Tyrese when we killed Tyrese. That's a spoiler alert for season 5, I think. And then there've been other characters that I have saved behind the scenes. There's actors on the show that don't even know I saved their lives. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and the Tyrese thing, and in the end, I understood it, but I just love that character, and I always missed writing that character from when I killed him off in the comic, and he technically lived a lot longer in the show than he did in the comic, so who am I to complain? I killed him earlier than that when I was in complete control. Right. So yeah, I can't really complain much, but yeah, there's not any real I didn't want those zombies climbing that fence in the second episode of season 1.
Yeah. Yep, I kind of laughed at that myself.
Yeah, I was like, we're doing the prison next season, what are you guys doing? We're going to be in a prison that's surrounded by a fence, and you're showing zombies climbing a fence. What's going on?
Great stuff. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to put Rick on.
Oh, this was awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Robert, thank you so much. Let's give a big round of applause for Robert Kirkman.
Robert, it's dark here. You guys can't even see me.
Your left.
We can see you fine. We thank you so much for doing this. You've been a big part of Famous Faces history. Bigger than you know. We still obviously talk about it all the time. You coming out to our store in 2006 was one of our favorite signings, and you're a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for doing this.
Awesome.
You have done more for the comic industry than probably any other creator single-handedly. The Walking Dead, especially, has brought so many fans in, but also Outcast, Invincible, the Walking Dead games, just about everything. And you've done an incredible job of reaching out, helping retailers, doing a lot of things right. So yeah, so there's a reason that almost all of our bestsellers are books like Walking Dead and Saga and things like that, and Invincible. And you've done so much for the industry. So thank you again so much. We certainly appreciate you spending your valuable time with us. And we can't thank you enough. Let's get one more round of applause for Robert Kirkman. Thank you so much. 25 years, yeah. 25 years ago today, Famous Faces and Funnies, March 1st, 1994, Famous Faces opened in a tiny little 800 square foot store. Now we're 11,000 square feet, doing better than ever, and a lot of industry. Awesome. Yeah, we're just very, very thankful for that. But yeah, you've been a big part of our success, and yeah, we really appreciate that.
It's still a weird name for a.
You are correct. It certainly is. Yeah, we're well aware. But yeah, thank you so much, man. We can't thank you enough for joining us. Have a great night. Thank you so much for donating your valuable time, man. You're the man. Thanks,
awesome.
Robert.
Well, no, guys, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. Anytime I can talk about my comics and talk about myself, I'm just in heaven. So thanks for providing me the outlet, and keep shopping at this store. It's fantastic. Rick's a great dude who sent me back issues for a very long time. And again, thank you for that Sal Buscema convention sketch. That was really awesome.
Of course, man. That means a lot to me to know you still have that. Appreciate it. That's awesome. You're the man, dude. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
All right, guys, have a good night. All right.